Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Atrophy of Soul, and welcome to my collection of Gamecube games. Yes, indeed, last time we did PlayStation 2 games, so today we will be doing Gamecube games, and if you've noticed, if you've been paying attention, if you have any sort of self-awareness, you will notice that I am at a different place in my room. I figured that doing videos from this angle would be a lot more interesting than the prior angles that I tend to use with my webcam and everything, so since you can see gaming stuff in the background, it makes a lot more sense to be over here. I hope this camera angle works pretty well, and if it does not, that's gonna suck. So the GameCube is... I just love this generation of consoles. It's absolutely amazing. I loved all three of these consoles, as well as the Dreamcast, if you count it in this console generation, which I believe that you do, but again, this is my favorite console generation. These were my favorite consoles, with pretty much my favorite games of all time. So let's get started. So the first game that we have here is actually a snowboarding game, actually my favorite snowboarding game of all time. I know plenty of people really love the SSX series, but I loved 1080 Avalanche, which was a really amazing game. Hopefully you guys can actually see the boxes this time around. Last time around, there was a lot of glare going on, which was pretty unfortunate. I don't know if you guys could see the covers very well, but I'm hoping that it works out better this time since the camera is nowhere near my actual computer screen. Here's the inside. It actually had a soundtrack on it as well, but the sense of speed in this game was just so well done. The graphics are really beautiful. The way the snow reacts to the characters, the way the snow actually goes onto the characters' costumes and everything like that was just so cool. And again, the sense of speed in this game is amazing. The GameCube had the best racing games of all time, as far as I'm concerned. This one and another one we will be seeing later that I will be gushing over. But 1080 is really good. It doesn't have as much of a focus on tricks as SSX, but it's more of a racing game. But the sense of speed here is just so well done. Such a good game. Absolutely love it. If you don't have it, be sure to pick it up. The controls are a little heavy. The characters feel very realistic, I think. So, you know, your characters aren't going to be jumping and doing like 3600s or anything in the air. You can do the 1080, but that's like the max that you'll be able to do for the most part, unless you're particularly skilled, or if you know of certain areas that will get you higher than a 1080. But yeah, very, very amazing game. Be sure to pick it up if you don't have it. If you're interested in racing games, or you like snowboarding, or if you like pretty good music. I actually quite like the soundtrack here. Pretty good stuff. So the next game that we have here is a platformer, and it is quite a strange platformer because it had a little bit of a gimmick to it, and it is Donkey Kong's Jungle Beat, or Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. Let me make sure you guys can see this, because I can't see myself from this angle, so it's a little harder to show you guys. This stuff I have to look over to my left. But again, hopefully you guys can see the cases pretty well. I'll show the front again just in case. But yeah, Donkey Kong's Jungle Beat, and in order to play this game, you had to use the DK bongos, from what I remember. I'm not sure if you could actually use a controller. I think you might have been able to, but in order to get the full sort of experience, you had to use the bongo controllers. And actually, I got the set with the bongo controllers. I'm not sure where those where that controller is, but it was a very interesting time. So in order to get Donkey Kong to move left and right, you had to tap the right bongo, or to go right, you tap the left bongo to go left. I think you hit them both at the same time in order to jump, and I think you clap in order to grab things, if I remember correctly. So in essence, you look like an absolute moron when you're playing this game. But it is quite a fun game. It has some very beautiful visuals, has some very nice level design. I just said level design, and it was just such a well done game, especially when you're when you get a chance to beat the boss. Like, after you finish the boss off, you get to just straight up pound them. And in order to pound them, you can just mash the bongos really quickly. It's pretty satisfying stuff, but it is kind of a it is kind of an annoying game to play while people are in the house. People are going to be pretty annoyed by the noise, but very, very good platformer, very interesting, sort of a precursor to the stuff that they would do with the Wii. But I would have just preferred a straight up normal platformer like the later Donkey Kong Country Returns series, but this one wasn't bad whatsoever. So the next game that we have here is Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. And I just swiped my hand against the microphone. I do apologize for that. It's my first time doing this setup. Please forgive me. But yes, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, a 4-player co-op action RPG. Here is the inside. I don't know if I showed the inside for one of my other ones. Whatever. Either way, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. So in order to play this game, you had to use... Well, in order to play the game co-op, you had to use the Game Boy Advance link cables. And it was really interesting the way that this was done. They did this with The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures on the GameCube, which I unfortunately do not own. And I would love to own, and I need to go back and find it. But so you use the Game Boy Advances as controllers for this game, and you get all your stats and things like that on the Game Boy Advance. You're able to go into your menus, and there are certain areas that you can go to that you'll have to look down at the Game Boy Advance in order to progress through. So it's very much like having the Wii U tablet, in all honesty. Again, Nintendo has been doing these kinds of things forever, and they just fully implement them later on into their consoles. But I was able to play this game through with my sister co-op because we both had Game Boy Advances. It's a very fun game, but something that's quite annoying about it is that one character always has to hold this bucket. And this bucket essentially works as a shield. So your characters have to remain in that shielded area in order to move around environments, because if you move outside of that, it's very hazardous and you'll lose health. And I think that was just sort of a way to circumvent some of the players just moving on to later areas of the stage and leaving everyone else behind. So in this way, everybody has to stay together and work together in order to complete the game. But it's a very fun game, but I can understand if you're the person who has to hold that little shield thing. It can be a little bit cumbersome, but for the most part, I had a really good time with this game. I thought it was really well done. I love the graphics, and a lot of the boss battles were really interesting. But a very interesting and somewhat gimmicky, but I think it was pretty innovative game. And it's definitely worth picking up. I'd love to see a remaster or something of this, maybe on Steam or on PlayStation Network or Xbox One or Nintendo Switch. But very fun game. I'd love to see it return with online co-op, of course. So the next game we have here is actually my favorite racing game of all time. Yes, indeed. This is my favorite. And it is FZero GX. And I will show the back of the box. 30 pilots, 20 courses, 1 champion. There are a lot more than 20 courses. I think there might be close to 40, maybe. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Because this has arcade courses in it, too. So, yeah, but anyway, my favorite racing game of all time. Oh, wait, I forgot to show the inside of the package. Can't forget that. So anyway, my favorite racing game of all time. The sense of speed in this game is insane. Very challenging game. You have to develop so much skill in order to be good at this game. There's a lot of memorization going on too, because in the F-Zero games, you actually have a life bar. If you ram into the walls too many times, if you ram into other characters too many times, if you fall off the stage too many times, you will lose health. And there is sort of a risk-reward system here going on, because once you finish the first lap, your actual energy meter becomes a boost gauge. So effectively, your boost is your energy. If you use a lot of boost throughout the course of a course, then you will be low on health pretty early on. But there are areas on the maps in order to refill your health and refill your boost gauge, because they're effectively the same thing. So you have to kind of decide when to use boost, when to not decide to use boost, where's best to use boost. It's just a very interesting system that they have going on here. So if you're really good at the game, you will be able to disperse your boosts out through the laps accordingly in order to make it so that you can get through the laps the fastest, obviously. You can also attack your opponents. Each of the vehicles are able to do this sort of spin attack, but it also damages you a little bit, so you need to watch out for that as well. But this is a game that is not for the faint of heart. This isn't something that every single person is just going to be able to pick up and play. I mean, you can pick up and play it, but you are not going to do a very good job initially. And this game is relentless with its difficulty. This game will murder your entire family. It will rape your children, and it will make you watch and laugh as it's doing it. It is such an awesome game, though. This is my favorite racing game of all time. Amazing music, amazing graphics, beautiful environments, a ridiculous sense of speed. The sense of speed that this game elicits is just so cool. I've never experienced something like it before or since. Besides maybe in the Sonic video games, like Sonic Unleashed or Sonic Generations, but that's a different sense of speed compared to F-Zero. But good lord, Nintendo, make a new F-Zero. If you don't make a new F-Zero, just remaster this one for the Switch. I don't care if you remaster it. I don't mind rebuying this game with online play or anything like that with some enhanced graphics. But Jesus Christ, we need a new F-Zero, because good lord, such an amazing game. This is, again, one of my favorite games of all time, and it is the greatest racing game of all time as far as I'm concerned. It's so good. If you've never played it, I highly, highly recommend it, especially if you're into racing games. There's just no better game as far as I'm concerned. It's ridiculously good. Okay, so the next game that we have here is a hidden classic, a game that many people don't really talk about these days, but an amazing game nonetheless. A very niche game in the way that it works, but we have here Killer 7 for the Gamecube, of course. And this is a Suda51 game, if I'm not mistaken. The same guy who does No More Heroes. He did Lollipop Chainsaw. He actually did a Samurai Champloo game as well, and he has also done Killer is Dead, which is sort of somewhat tenuously connected to Killer 7. But this game is a complete mindfuck. I love the style of this. This is sort of like if Silent Hill met Shin Megami Tensei, or not Shin Megami Tensei, met Persona 5 or something, like in just how stylish it is. But this is very much a puzzle game. It's sort of akin to old school survival horror games in the way that it's set up. But the thing is, all of your characters are on rails in this game, which is very, very interesting. So in order to move forward and backward, you're just holding down a single button. For the GameCube version, you're just holding down the A button. As you hold down the A button, your character will run straight through on their railed path. If you want them to turn around, I think it's the B button. They'll do a quick turn. And then as you go through environments, did I show the inside of the box? I don't think I did. But yeah, as you go through environments, you are given choices on whether or not you want to go left or go right or go forward. So there are little breaks in the path that you can go through. But so yeah, this game, again, it's like a survival puzzle game with some action elements, because you can shoot monsters. There are these monsters called the Heaven Smile, and they're completely invisible in all the areas that they're found in. They're like suicide kind of kamikaze bombers. So whenever they get close to you, they just explode. So when you hear them laughing, you'll hear a little cackle. You'll have to aim and then hit down or push down this button in order to scan the area. Once you see them, they have a weak point that you have to shoot. And yeah, that's the majority of the combat. There are different versions of the Heaven Smile throughout the entirety of the campaign, so it doesn't get too repetitive. However, again, this game is very much like a survival horror game with a very crazy story. Like I can't even give you a synopsis of the story properly because it is just so crazy. In either case, you are part of the Killer 7, and the Killer 7 are different personalities of a single person. So yeah, that's just the basis of the game. There's a lot of stuff going on with like God and heavenly entities doing battle against one another, and then there's sort of this political plot about suicide bombers, and then the supernatural elements with the Heaven Smile, and just a lot of things intermixed together. But it's a pretty deep game as well. If you like games that are sort of cerebral but very, very strange, this is a very good game. And if you like horror, I think you will really like the game. The game has a very interesting style to it. Again, it's a very stylish game, a very awesome game, and I think it's pretty underrated. No one really talks about it, but yeah, Killer 7, very interesting game. So the next game we have here, I briefly talked about in my PlayStation 2 collection video. This is the Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, which again is another very, very awesome beat-em-up game, sort of beat-em-up action game from EA. EA was doing some very good games back during this generation for the most part. But yeah, here's the inside. And yeah, as I relented in the previous video about the Two Towers game, the Two Towers didn't have co-op. However, this one did. This game actually has 2-player co-op. However, you can only do the 2-player co-op from what I remember when you're playing as Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. But when you're playing as Gandalf, it's just Gandalf. He has his own campaign. Ooh, excuse me. And I think Frodo and Sam, I'm not sure if there was co-op with them. I can't remember because whenever I played this game, I always did the Aragorn and Legolas campaign because I thought it was cool. But yeah, very fun game. Very cool, straightforward, beat 'em up. Very fun to play co-op with somebody. If you like Lord of the Rings, you will enjoy this game. If you enjoyed the movies, you should enjoy this game. It's pretty basic, but it's fun. It does its job pretty well. It has some excellent music from the movies, and I think it does have movie clips as well, from what I remember. But if you're interested, be sure to pick it up. I think it's a very good game. Very, very awesome. So another game that I talked about briefly in my previous video, which is SpiderMan 2. The movie game, based on the movie of the same title. And this is one of the greatest superhero games ever made. Only because of the swinging mechanics. I love the swinging mechanics in Spider-Man 2. I honestly don't remember much else about the gameplay. I do think that the combat was pretty interesting. There were some pretty nice combos. But there was just one single combo that you could use to pretty much take everybody down once you figured out what it was. I mean, that was the go-to combo, but there were a lot of different things that you can do with Spider-Man. You can give him sort of like web knuckles and swing enemies around and strewn them up and things like that. It was very good, but the most memorable thing about it were the swinging mechanics, and to this day, I still love the web swinging mechanics in this game. Again, as I said in the previous video, I think Ultimate Spider-Man is the better game overall. But this was the game that started that web swinging mechanic, and it was just so well done. We had never seen anything like that, and the buildings were so high, and you could go from the tops of the buildings all the way down to the floor below, or the street level. And we were never able to do that before in a Spider-Man game, from what I remember, as far as the 3D Spider-Man games go. Because every time you were web swinging above the city, you could not go to the bottom of the city. You had to stay above. If you fell down, then it was like a death. So this was the first game that was just fully open world. There were a lot of side missions, a lot of repeating side missions. Again, as I said, you had to help this kid get a balloon like 5,000 times, and it was annoying after the second time that you did it. But again, just a very, very fun game. And if you really love Spider-Man, if you're interested in anything Spider-Man, this is definitely a game that you should pick up because it's really good. So the next game that we have here is quite the controversial one for many people, but it is one of the better games on the Gamecube, and the Gamecube has a lot of really amazing games. But this was a Gamecube exclusive, and it still is to this day. It has not been remade, it has not been remastered, even in the collections of the series. But we have Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. And honestly, I never really liked this cover art for some reason. It's probably because it doesn't have the Shinkawa artwork on it. I always prefer the Shinkawa artwork for the Metal Gear games, as opposed to the 3D renders. I don't know why, but I thought the artwork for this one was kind of basic. I thought they could have done a far better job. Maybe had Gray Fox in the background, or Metal. They kind of have Metal. They do have Metal Gear in the background, but it's kind of faded and kind of weird. But but yeah. Anyway, enough about the artwork. Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. So the reason that this game was quite controversial is because all the voice acting was obviously redone. And the voice acting here is inferior to the voice acting in the original Metal Gear Solid. In my opinion, and I think many fans' opinion, I think the voice acting here it's a lot more. How could I put it? It's a lot more subdued than the voice acting in the original Metal Gear Solid. There was a lot more emoting going on there, whereas in this one, some of the characters just seem like they're line reading, especially Naomi. It's just it's kind of weird, just the way that she emotes. She doesn't emote as much as she did in the prior game, and some of the accents were changed because they weren't supposed to have accents in Metal Gear Solid. but so they kind of ameliorated that issue with this game, but still the performances overall weren't as good. Obviously all the people still do a very good job, but again, in my opinion, I would have rather they just transferred the voice acting from Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1 to this game. But I did hear that there were some sound issues with the original Metal Gear Solid's voice acting. Like you could hear like cars in the background or something if you were to go back to the original audio. So they just decided to redo everything. But this is a very interesting game, again, because they changed the voice acting and they changed the way the vast majority of the cutscenes were done. So the director of the cutscenes in this game was the director for Versus, if I remember correctly. And if you guys have never seen Versus, it's this low-budget Japanese movie. Sort of martial arts Japanese movie about zombies and reincarnation. It has some pretty badass action scenes, very reminiscent to Devil May Cry, and some of those action scenes. Awesome. You may not like Versus for the story at all, because the story's kind of all over the place and there's some very weird moments in it. But the action choreography in that movie was amazing, especially for a low budget film. It was just so well done. Again, very reminiscent to Devil May Cry, some very badass stuff there. I mean, they have stuff where the two characters are shooting at each other and their bullets are colliding, so you see the bullets just dropping on the ground. Just things like that, very Devil May Cry-esque. So this was the guy who did the direction for the action in this game. So the action is so much more over the top in this game. It's so ridiculous. Like Snake just like backflips off of a rocket, jumps off the rocket somehow, flies up in the air, shoots a stinger missile at the Hind D that Liquid Snake is riding in, and it blows up the Hind D. So things like that. I think the direction worked really well for Gray Fox. I think Gray Fox was the perfect character to have this guy directing his movements. But some of the stuff that Snake does in this game, in the cutscenes, is so over the top that it may suspend your disbelief even for a Metal Gear game. Snake is doing a lot of the stuff that the ninja characters would do in the later games, like Raiden, and again Gray Fox. And he's doing stuff that kind of rivals Metal Gear Rising, in all honesty. But yeah, so all those action sequences are changed. They're not as grounded as they were in Metal Gear Solid, and that may turn some people off to this game. And also, finally, when it comes down to the gameplay, this game translated the original Metal Gear Solid perfectly. Almost nothing has been touched. There are a few small changes here and there, but the thing that kind of detracts from this game is that since Metal Gear Solid had a certain gameplay style where you couldn't hang off ledges, you couldn't aim in first person, things like that, being able to do that in this game completely breaks it. It makes this game a lot easier, because being able to jump off ledges, being able to hold up guards, it just makes the game overall a lot easier than it was on the PlayStation 1. So the gameplay balance is a little weird. The level design doesn't compensate for the new mechanics from Metal Gear Solid 2 that were added into this game. So that's why this game is sort of a mixed bag for many people, but I do enjoy it. However, I do much prefer the original Metal Gear Solid, because I think it's a much more well-balanced and well-made game, and the way the cutscenes and the music and everything come together is a lot better. Some of the music has changed in this one too, and I didn't like the new choices. But again, this is a very good game. Very awesome, very beautiful, very nice frame rates and everything. Again, it's Metal Gear Solid 1 with Metal Gear Solid 2 mechanics on top of it. But again, the game doesn't compensate for those new mechanics, which makes it a little bit of a mixed bag. And again, all the new cutscenes, the new voice acting, it may throw you off. Some of the way over the top stuff in this game may throw you off. But again, if you're a Metal Gear fan, you're likely going to enjoy it for the novelty alone. So be sure to pick it up. If you've never played Metal Gear before, I would suggest playing the original Metal Gear Solid first and then going to this. And you may enjoy this more just because it looks better. But I still think Metal Gear Solid is the better game of the two. But still a great game. And I talked about this for way too long. So the next game that we have here is Sonic DX. Or Sonic Adventure DX. Which is a port of Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast. There are a few differences between this one and the Dreamcast version. This one runs at a higher frame rate. The graphics are actually better in this version. Some people prefer the graphics in the Dreamcast version though. But again, this one runs at a higher frame rate. I think this one runs at 60. The Dreamcast version ran at 30. There are some extra modes. You can unlock all of the Sonic the Hedgehog Game Gear games on this as well, which is absolutely amazing. That was such an awesome bonus to add here. And I think you can unlock Metal Sonic in this version as well. But yeah, it's a straight up port of Sonic Adventure. I do own Sonic Adventure on a Dreamcast, but my disc got really scratched up by my Dreamcast before it got defective. So when I got a new Dreamcast, the game wouldn't work. So I was going to buy a new version of the Dreamcast one, but I never had the DX version. So I figured I'd just pick it up on the Gamecube. And it's a pretty good game. I mean, it's Sonic Adventure. If you like Sonic Adventure, you will enjoy this game. I will talk more about Sonic Adventure when I go into my Dreamcast collection. But yeah, it's just a port of Sonic Adventure. I have a lot to say about Sonic Adventure, but I will save that for my Dreamcast video. But again, this one has a lot of extras. It's really cool. It's a very well done port. And of course, the next game we have here is Sonic Heroes. And Sonic Heroes is the first game in the Sonic series that was completely multi-platform. This released a little after the GameCube, the Sega Dreamcast died. Not a little after, like a few years after the Dreamcast died. I don't have the manual for some reason. Don't know what the hell happened to that. But, yeah. So this was an all-new Sonic game, as it says here. I don't know if you guys can see that. But, yeah, so it was a game where you played as teams of characters. So the main team, obviously, is Team Sonic, where you play as Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails. Then you can play as the Chaotix team. You can play as Team Rose, which is like the easy mode of the game with Big the Cat and Cream the Rabbit and Amy Rose. And you can play as the dark characters, which was like the hardest difficulty. Where Shadow, Rouge, and one of the E101 characters was there you could play as. I can't remember what his name was. He was like... it doesn't matter. Either way, I think this is a very good game. I don't understand why people give this game so much garbage. I mean, the team switching mechanic is kind of cumbersome. But once you get the level design down, like once you memorize a lot of the levels... It becomes second nature, but I will admit that some of the levels do kind of drag. But considering the fact that this game was just straight up a level-to-level game, there was no like little adventure world like in Sonic Adventure 1. It had to have longer levels, I think, in order to warrant the price of admission, I think. But I think a lot of the level design was really well done in this game. I thought the levels were fun. I love the music here, too. I think this game of the 3D Sonics, at least back during this period of time, was the closest to the classics in the way that it was set up, because you had 2 acts for each stage. Each act had different music. There were bosses after each of the 2 acts, from what I remember. That's not something that you saw very often, especially in the previous Sonic adventure game. So it was just a very cool kind of throwback game. But after this game is when Sonic started going very downhill. After this, I think we got Shadow the Hedgehog, which was a piece of garbage game as far as I'm concerned. Then we got Sonic 06, the greatest holy grail game of all time. But yeah, I really enjoy this game. I like it quite a bit. Love the music, love the graphics, love the speed. Always loved these Sonic games, but this was the last good one of that era, up until Sonic Unleashed, probably. I did enjoy Sonic and the Secret Ring somewhat, but we'll get into that when we get to it. But yeah, very cool game, I think. So the next game that we have here is actually a fighting game, and it is my favorite in this series of fighting games, and it is Soul Calibur 2, which is featuring our good friend, one of my favorite characters ever, Link, from The Legend of Zelda. And so back when Soul Calibur 2 released, and oh yeah, this is fucking awesome. Have Link right on the booklet, which is cool. Back when video games had booklets, so look at this, it's so amazing. And here's the disc. But yeah, so Soul Calibur 2 is actually my favorite Soul Calibur game. And it's not only because Link is in it, but that is quite the bonus. Everything about this game was such an improvement over the original Soul Calibur. The single player campaign mode, I forgot what it's called in this one. I just thought it was so much more in depth than the previous one was. I thought a lot of the challenges made a lot more sense. There's some really difficult sections in that single player mode. God, I can't remember it. Is it called like Sword and... Oh, Weapon Master mode. Is it Weapon Master? I think it's Weapon Master mode. Maybe it isn't. I can't remember. But yeah, so that mode was so awesome. Going through all of the areas, taking on all the challenges, unlocking the characters, being able to play as Link was so cool. Especially this incarnation of Link, the way that they did him in this game was just so cool. Like, he had all of his moves from A Legend of Zelda. You could throw the bombs on the ground, shoot people with your arrows, swing the Master Sword around. He actually had his spinning attack as well. Just such cool stuff. Each of the versions of Soul Calibur 2 that came out on each of the consoles had a different character in it. So the GameCube version had Link, the Xbox version had Spawn, and the PlayStation 2 version had Heihachi Mishima from Tekken. And by far, Link was the best of all the exclusive characters. By far. It was just... I love Spawn, and I like Heihachi, but none of them hold a candle to Link. Link is fucking awesome. So, being able to play as Link in this game was just so amazing. I loved all the stages here as well, and just all of the movesets that the characters had in this version, the way that the moves worked was a lot better. I remember Keelik in this game, I think he had the ability where he could do a split on the ground, and if you timed it perfectly, you could get a guard counter or a counter on the enemy that tried to swing at you. And then in later games, they took out that ability from what I remember, which kind of threw me off. And then later on, Keelik essentially becomes Edgemaster, which was really stupid, in my opinion. But yeah, this is my favorite Soul Calibur game. I don't know why, I just love this game. I think Soul Calibur 3 has the better stages and graphics and overall art design. But I think as far as the core gameplay goes, I think I prefer 2 over all of these Soul Caliburs. Just such a good game. Fucking love this game. With a passion, I love it. Alrighty, moving on, we have Paper Mario, the Thousand-Year Door, which many people consider to be the greatest of the Paper Mario games. And I honestly can't argue with them on that fact. I do have Paper Mario Color Splash, but I haven't played it yet, so I couldn't tell you if that one is better. But as far as action RPGs go, this is one of the greatest games. The story here is hilarious. All the characters are hilarious. The gameplay here is very fun. This game has an interesting mix of puzzle solving and action RPG elements. So each of the areas that you go through, there are little things to figure out. And considering that Mario is a piece of paper, you'll have to do things with him in order to get through areas. So it's a little bit like Metroid, in that you'll get new abilities that you can use in older areas in order to find new secrets and things like that. So there's a lot of puzzle solving going on here. And of course, the combat. The combat is just really good. It's very time-based, but it's turn-based as well. So if you want to get extra damage done on an enemy, after you select an attack, you'll have to hit the corresponding button down at a certain time when your character is about to attack an enemy, and it will do extra damage to them. Things like that. I love the story here. The way Mario interacts with all the characters, it's just so cool. Mario can turn into like a paper airplane and fly around, and I don't know. It's just such a very well written game too. It's absolutely hilarious. One of my favorite RPGs ever. It's kind of weird because I don't really think about this game when I'm thinking about like RPGs or turn-based RPGs, but honestly, this is one of my favorite turn-based RPGs. I always say Final Fantasy X is my favorite turn-based RPG for the core gameplay, but if I were to consider this game, this game might be. I'm not sure. I don't know, I have to think about it more, but it's such a well-done game. If you love like action RPGs with quirky characters, that's very lighthearted but very hilarious, you will absolutely love this game. Be sure to pick it up, especially if you like Mario. If you like Mario, you should have this game already, honestly. Okay, so we have another game in the Mario franchise, but I wouldn't necessarily consider it a normal Mario game, just like Paper Mario wasn't. We have Mario Kart Double Dash, and this version actually had a demo disc included with it. But yes, Mario Kart Double Dash, I absolutely love this game. It is a little floaty compared to the later Mario Kart games. There's the demo disc, and there's Double Dash, and here is the manual. From what I remember, the demo disc had demos for like Mario Party, Rogue Squadron. I think it had a demo for that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game on it too, from what I remember. I don't know, I have to pop in that demo disc. I can't remember exactly what was on it. But yeah, Mario Kart Double Dash, very fun game. You could play it co-op sort of, because when you're playing the game, you have to choose 2 characters. Depending on the 2 characters that you choose, your abilities will change. So combining certain characters will give you augmented abilities. However, if you combine 2 different characters, you will get both of their ability sets, but I don't think the ability sets were as strong or something like that. If you picked incompatible characters or something. I don't know, it was interesting the way it worked, but essentially you could hold 4 items at the same time. So if you were driving around with Mario and Luigi, you could have Mario pick up 2 of the item boxes. He'd get 2 items. And then you could switch around and get Luigi, and he'd have 2 of the items. If I remember correctly. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that right, honestly. I don't know. It's been so long since I played Double Dash. I'm probably wrong about that, in all honesty. You could probably only hold 2 items at once. I think when you hit in... It's because there were, like, double item boxes that you could hit that would give both characters an item. I don't know. I'd have to go back and play it. I'm sure you guys will correct me in the comment section. It's been so long since I've played Double Dash because I've played Mario Kart 7 and 8 and 6 so much in comparison to this. So I can't remember exactly. But yeah, either way, a very fun game. This has some of my favorite stages in the Mario Kart games. But the graphics here were so beautiful. I love the battle mode in this as well. The battle mode was so fun. And again, being able to pick both the characters at the same time was very interesting. Being able to play co-op where if you tag in your partner, they'll be driving the car. If you tag back in, you'll be driving again. It was just such a very cool game. I really love this one. I think this one's a little underrated. I think a lot of people don't really care for this one. But I thought it was a really fun game. And getting all of the 150 cc's and the mirror mode trophies for first place was a pain in the ass to do on this. My god, so much rage playing this game, but I love it. I love it so much. Very good game. If you like Mario Kart, you're gonna like this game. So we once again have another Mario game here, and this time around we have Super Mario Sunshine, which is Mario's successor to Mario 64, or the successor to Mario 64. The first platformer, the first 3D platformer to release after Mario 64. And this game is a little bit of a mixed bag. Oh, Jesus, there's an advertisement for Animal Crossing in here. But yeah, this game is a little bit of a mixed bag. It was very beautiful graphically. A lot of the levels were very interesting, but the idea of remaining in Isle Delfino the entirety of the game, the story was just so weird and all over the place, and just some of the level design was very frustrating here. And the fact that you couldn't get the shines in any order that you wanted, really, it kind of threw things off for this game. I don't know. There was just a lot of strange design decisions that went on that were implemented into this one. However, some of my favorite stages in this game are when you actually don't have the flood pack on you and you're in these sort of weird kind of like abstract environments where Mario's just jumping around in the middle of like weird nowhere. Like you can't even pinpoint where he is, like an acid trip. And those areas, I think, were some of the best areas in the game, and those areas are very reminiscent to Super Mario Galaxy, because they were straight-up platforming levels, and they were so well done. This game has a lot of great music, but again, I'm not sure about a lot of the ways that they decided to implement the mechanics and the level design here. I actually think this is the worst of the 3D Mario platformers. It's still a really good game. Don't get me wrong. It'd probably be like a 7.5 to 8 out of 10 game. But compared to Mario 64, that was so revolutionary back in the day, and Super Mario Galaxy, that was once again sort of revolutionary back when it released, this game is very underwhelming by comparison, which is pretty unfortunate. It's still a good game, but I don't know. I don't have too much fondness for it. I do enjoy it, but there was just too much frustration that went on with this one. I don't know. Either way, very good game. If you like Mario, you'll likely derive some sort of enjoyment from it, but don't expect it to be on the same level as the more classic Mario games. So again, we have one of my favorite games of all time, Super Smash Bros. Melee, for the Gamecube, of course, and only on the Gamecube, sadly. But Super Smash Bros. Melee, Jesus Christ, so many memories with this game. I wonder how many hours I put into this thing. I'm sure I put like 1,000 hours into this game back in the day, doing all of the event matches, doing the home run mode, going through the mini campaign mode over and over again to try to unlock all the secrets and all the characters, trying to get the highest scores and just beating every single person who decided to challenge me in this game. This game is just so good. Everything about it. I don't think I have a single complaint that I can think of about this game. Besides the fact that it steals every second that you have from you. If you want your time stolen from you, be sure to pick this game up because it will not let you go. But if you enjoy fighting games, again, I don't know if you guys consider Super Smash Bros. A fighting game, a typical fighting game. I mean, it is a fighting game, but a lot of people don't consider it, a fighting game because it's not in the same style as something like Street Fighter or Tekken. But it's such a good game. I just can't get enough of it. I still go back to this game and play it. This is still probably the best of the Super Smash Bros. Games. The Wii U one is quite close, but this game, I don't think anything is ever going to top it. Just, they did everything right with this one. Absolutely everything. It's just so good. The only thing I would ask for is more characters in this one with the same style, but just love everything about this game. I miss the adventure mode so much. I really wish that they would bring it back. They do have other modes to kind of supplement the loss of the adventure mode, but it's just not the same as just going through those mini Nintendo stages or those mini Nintendo franchise specific stages with each of the Smash characters and going through them, especially the Zelda stages. I love those ones. The music there was great, but such a good game. And if you did everything properly, you would get a boss battle with Giga Bowser at the very end. I think if you didn't lose any lives or something like that, always try to get Giga Bowser at the end. But yeah, such a good game. This game is just too good. So again, another one of my favorite games of all time, and one of the greatest survival horror games of all time. We have Resident Evil, which was the remake of Resident Evil for the GameCube. And Jesus Christ, you guys have no idea. This was the first game that I actually bought with my GameCube. Back when I purchased it, after working all summer, I finally was able to purchase a GameCube. And I purchased this with it. And not too long after, I purchased Super Smash Bros. Actually, I don't think Super Smash Bros. Was out yet. I can't remember. But I didn't have enough to buy 2 games, so I just bought Resident Evil. And my God, the graphics in this game, even to this day, still impress me. But back then, this was the most beautiful fucking game I'd ever seen in my life. Everything about it was gorgeous. The graphics are just so beautiful. And the way that they redesigned all the environments. My God, and the way that all of the new areas that they added and the new enemy types, the Crimson Zombies, were just a complete game changer. Like, you're just going through this game as though you're playing the original Resident Evil, and all of a sudden the zombie gets back up from the ground and starts chasing you. And goddamn, such a well-made game. One of the greatest survival horror games ever made. Again, I have a hard time choosing which is my favorite Resident Evil game, but I still can't say this one's my favorite either, because I love Resident Evil 2, love Resident Evil 3, love Resident Evil 4, love this game, and I still love the original Resident Evil. I still play both of them because they're essentially different games. But yeah, fucking hell, that's such a good game. I can't say it enough. Terrifying game, especially when you first play through it. But if you guys are interested, I do have no damage playthrough. 2 no damage playthroughs actually of this game with both of the characters. So if you're interested in watching that and figuring out how to no damage the game, you can check those out. I'll probably put that at the end during the sort of the final title card or whatever you want to call it, the end slate. But yeah, such a good game. If you love survival horror and you haven't played this, you have to play it, especially now since they have the HD versions on all of the networks. But oh god, such a good game. And the next game we have is Resident Evil 0, which is another amazing survival horror game. However, it wasn't as good as the Resident Evil remake. At least this version wasn't. However, I do think that the new PlayStation Network, Steam, Xbox Live version, the HD version, I think that one is better. Not better, it's almost on par with the remake. Probably a little under remake, but this one had a lot of weird design issues, specifically for the GameCube version. I don't think this one controlled as well as the new version that they did. There are a lot of subtle differences between this version and the HD version that makes the HD version a lot better. But again, overall, I really love this game. However, when you first play through it, it can be kind of cumbersome, especially when there are no item boxes and you're dropping all these items on the floor and you're in these hallways and there are items all over the place and you can't pick up the certain item that you want. And switching between the characters is a little weird. I think this is the game that really should have some sort of co-op mode in it. Have somebody else control one of the other characters. It would make for some very interesting speed runs. But either way, the character switching mechanic was quite interesting. All of the new enemies were interesting. However, the zombie monkey things I wasn't very keen on. But yeah, you got a lot of new backstory about Umbrella and the creation of Umbrella and Wesker. And even William Birkin shows up in this game, which is pretty cool. But you get to see everything that Rebecca did before the mansion incident, and it's a very cool game, and get to see what Billy was doing as well, even though we never see Billy again, unfortunately. Hoping that we see him again sometime. But either way, very awesome game. If you're a fan of the Resident Evil series, be sure to pick this up. However, if you've never played a Resident Evil game before, I would not suggest picking this one up. I would suggest picking up a remake or Resident Evil 4 or something like that, but very awesome game nonetheless. If you get into the series and you want to play more of them, be sure to pick this one up. I'm not sure if I like this one or Code Veronica more. I still don't know which one of those I prefer. I think I prefer this one over Code Veronica because Code Veronica, Jesus, that game is pretty difficult. And of course, in order to complete the Resident Evil franchise on the GameCube, at least as far as the new games that were released on there, because they did release all of the classic games for the most part on the GameCube. But yes, we have Resident Evil 4, or 4 Resident Evil for some reason. But yes, Resident Evil 4, I love this cover. I prefer this cover over the PlayStation 2 cover. I think this one just looks fucking badass. I love Leon's stance there, and the chainsaw dude coming up behind him and all the villagers there. So cool. The other one looks a lot more solitary in comparison. It's a lot more muted. I do like the blue, but this purple is fucking badass. And there's El Gigante. And of course, Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube was actually on 2 discs. So you actually switch discs, I believe, when you finally reach the 5th chapters. So besides that, all of the game is on the 1 disc, but I think once you get to chapter 5-1, that's when the disc has to be changed, if I remember correctly. But this game was so amazing. I got this is the copy that I got the day that Resident Evil 4 came out. And my god, just playing through this, it was just like an instant classic. it was just so amazing, such an interesting experience. Again, this one doesn't have the extras that the PS2 version has. However, this one has better graphics. I do prefer the GameCube controller for this game over the PS2 one. I don't know, just the triggers felt better, and doing the QTEs on this version felt better as well. But this version didn't have the Separate Ways campaign either, but it still had mercenaries and things like that. But good lord, one of the greatest games ever made. I talked about it before already in the previous video, but I have so many different copies of this game. But yeah, just one of the greatest games of all time. And the GameCube version was my favorite version up until the Wii version. And then that one was my favorite version until the Steam version. But yeah, such a great game. Alright, so next we are going to more of my favorite games of all time. So with the GameCube, I don't have as many games for it. However, the games that I do have are such quality in comparison to some of my other collections. Obviously, these games are no exception. However, these games are ports of older games. And these discs go for quite a pretty penny these days. And I am so happy that I got these back when they released. So the first one that I'm going to show off is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and Ocarina of Time Master Quest. And this also had like a sneak preview of other games that were releasing on the GameCube. As you can see, I believe it has Metroid, it has 1080, has FZero. So there were little FMV videos, that's redundant. FMVs or CG trailers for those games, which is pretty cool. But yes, I got this copy of Ocarina of Time and Ocarina of Time Master Quest because I pre-ordered The Legend of Zelda, the Wind Waker. I should fix this. I love the disc. It has all the fire in the background. And as you can see, here's the Wind Waker sort of preview thing that they had in here. I will pull that out actually, so you guys can see. So yeah, here's the Wind Waker preview book. Here's the back of it, which is freaking amazing. Very awesome. I'll show some of the pages. I'm not going to be able to show all of them because it's going to take forever. But yeah, they linked you to a website. I forgot what the website was called. Zelda.com/Ocarina to get like a walkthrough. Just in case you were having trouble with Ocarina of Time. If you hadn't played it before. And here's some preview for the Wind Waker. So again, I got this disc when I pre-ordered the Wind Waker. I put $10 down, and they gave me this, and it was fucking amazing that they gave me this. And I played through this like I think 4 or 5 times before Wind Waker released. Here's the Master Quest booklet. This booklet is pretty hefty. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here, especially compared to booklets nowadays. But yeah, so it was so cool. Oh wait, I actually have my receipt here. Jesus. Oh, awesome. All right, so I can show you guys. I believe I put $10 down. Yeah, here I got it from Walmart too. Cool. All right, so here is my receipt. And there's a $10 down. I don't know why I still have this in here. I'm kind of glad that I do, so I can show it off. And here's when I came back to pay it off when the game released. And here is the reserve your copy $10 thing, which shows that it gives you Master Quest, I think. No, wait, does it? Yeah, March 15th, 2003. Holy shit, so long ago. It's so cool that I still have this too. But yeah, so I love the Master Quest version of Ocarina of Time. I actually prefer this over the Nintendo 64 one. And of course, the Master Quest version actually has different setups for the dungeons. Things are more difficult, but it's just so cool. I love this game so much, Ocarina of Time. One of my favorite games of all time. I may do a thoughts video on it sometime in order to talk about its flaws, as well as why I still consider it one of the best games of all time. But yeah, so cool. Again, this disc goes for quite a pretty penny now. But I'll never give this, I will never give this up. Never. Ever, ever. But, okay, so, moving on, we have another Legend of Zelda disc that goes for a pretty penny these days. And this is the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition. And this actually had a playable demo for the Wind Waker. You can see it on the back there. However, this Collector's Edition actually contains the original Legend of Zelda, has Legend of Zelda 2, it has Ocarina of Time, and it has Majora's Mask. I already showed you guys, but show you again. But yeah, so it has 4 different Zelda games. I'm not sure if this one had any previews on it. I think it only had a preview for Wind Waker. But here's the inside. So from what I can recall, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, which I'm sure you guys will do. Again, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I remember, the only way to get this disc was to have a subscription to Nintendo Power. The disc might have been sold somewhere. I think it might have been sold in some GameStops or EB Games. But yeah, from what I remember, the only way to get it was to have a subscription to Nintendo Power, and that's how I got my copy. I just subscribed to them, and they sent me the Collector's Edition disc, and I'm so glad that I got this because it's so awesome. Love going through these games. Games are amazing. Especially Majora's Mask is one of the greatest games of all time. Once again, just like Ocarina of Time. So now, for one of the most controversial of the Legend of Zelda games, we have the Legend of Zelda, the Wind Waker. Of course, as you guys saw, because I pre-ordered the goddamn game, you knew it was coming up. Really love this cover too. And here's the inside. The booklet is actually pretty thick in this game. Goes into a lot of detail about a lot of things. But yeah, so the change in art style really threw people off, of course. But I absolutely adore this game. I don't like it as much as Majora's Mask or Ocarina of Time, especially because of the lack of dungeons. I really wish that this game had more dungeons in it. I think this game only has like 5 or maybe 6 dungeons overall. But and then the quest for the shards of the Triforce was very irritating. But overall, very good game with beautiful, beautiful artwork, beautiful art style, and gorgeous graphics. Even to this day, this game looks amazing. I don't think this game is never gonna be horrible to look at. It's always gonna be a beautiful game because of the style. But I absolutely love this game. I think it was really cool. I love the young Link. Riding the seas could be a little bit annoying as well too, because there wasn't too much to be done. But again, it was such an ambitious game, especially they changed the art style for Zelda so much. It was quite a bold decision for Nintendo to make, which something that they kind of went back on with the next game. But very, very awesome game. If you like Zelda, you will like this one. I think this is a good one to start with if you've never gotten into the series. But yeah, very good game. And of course, the final Zelda game that I have on the GameCube, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Yes, indeed, I have the GameCube version and not the Wii version. And I'm glad that I have the GameCube version because I wasn't interested in the motion controls. And I don't like that the entire campaign is backward on the Wii version. But yeah, this is one of my favorite Zelda games. And I know that a lot of people don't like it as much because it's not as original or innovative as some of the previous games, but I think this is like the perfect distillation of everything that makes Zelda great. The campaign is very lengthy. The puzzles are really cool. The items that you get, I mean, you get double hook shots in this game. I already love the hook shot, but you get double hook shots. I mean, it's so good. You also get this sort of spinner thing that Link can ride on, and for one of the boss fights, that thing is implemented pretty well. I just love the kind of set piece that they have there with that boss fight. But this is a Zelda game kind of made for fans of Zelda games. It's kind of a love letter to the entire series as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there are a lot of references to Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. People essentially call this Ocarina of Time 2 or a rehash of Ocarina of Time, but I think it does enough different to distinguish itself from Ocarina of Time. And of course, the introduction is a little on the long side. Going through all the text, doing all of the tutorials and everything like that will take you like 2 or 3 hours. But after that, after the game really gets going, it's a fucking amazing game. Again, one of my favorites in the series, in spite of the fact that it kind of retreads old ground, but I don't mind that at all. I love the new art style too, the more dark art style. Graphically though, this one doesn't hold up as well as the Wind Waker, nowhere near as well as the Wind Waker. It's still a very good looking game with beautiful artwork, but the Wind Waker is just always going to be a better looking game than this one is. Besides, back when this first released, I mean, this was mind-blowing to look at because it was what everybody wanted from a Zelda game graphically, because it was more grounded and realistic. But the grounded and realistic look is not going to translate very well over time unless it's stylized in some sort of way, which I think Nintendo learned quite well with the next 2 Zelda games that they released. But yeah, amazing game. I absolutely adore this game. Fucking beautiful, beautiful game in all aspects, besides that long tutorial. Okay, so the final 2 games that I have on the GameCube. This is one of my favorite fucking games of all time. I've said that a few times here, but I honestly think this game is in my top 5 games of all time. If I could choose 5 video games, I think this game would have to be in there. And such an amazing game. So the game is, many of you may be able to guess it, but it is Metroid Prime. Yes, indeed, Metroid Prime. One of my favorite goddamn games ever made. Such a good game. This is one of the most immersive video games I've ever experienced in my life. There's just no other game that has made me feel like such a part of this organic environment. Like it's just so beautiful the way that this game is. Like everything about the design philosophy here is just second to none. The way that they had you inside of Samus's visor, the way that you can see her reflection sometimes when things get too bright or flashes come, or if an explosion is too close to you. All of the little details, like the water dripping on the face of the visor, or the snow clinging to the face of the visor and melting away when you're in the Phendrana drifts. Just God, there's just so much to love about this video game. The fucking music, Jesus Christ. That atmospheric music is just too good. So good. The graphics in this game are beautiful. Even to this day, I think they're beautiful. They're just stylized and colorful enough to not look dated. Like a lot of the more realistic games from this era, or a lot of the games that tried to be more realistic graphically, kind of had this bland look to them, which is something, again, that Twilight Princess kind of had a little bit, with kind of nasty looking textures here and there. But Metroid Prime is just such a colorful and beautiful game. Overall, just fucking masterpiece. This game is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. I adore this game. That everything about it. There are little issues here and there. I mean, you don't have the screw attack. You can't dash everywhere like in the older games. I would have loved to have seen how they could have implemented the dashing mechanic when Samus is just able to ram through areas. But yeah, again, no screw attack. But just the way that they translated everything from Super Metroid over to this game which is done so well. Like this is sort of akin to when they, moved Mario, like from Super Mario Brothers to Super Mario 6 or Super Mario 64, in the way that it was sort of a game changer. So this game was just fucking amazing. I just I can't say enough about this game. Again, some of the scanning can be a bit annoying, especially on repeated playthroughs when you want on 100% of the game and you've already read everything and just going around rooms just scanning things just to make sure that you've scanned them. But when you're first playing through the game and you're scanning through and you're reading all these documents about what's happening in the environment and about how the environment got the way that it was, and how the ancient civilizations dealt with their environment and the animals and all the ancient techniques that they had, and it's like being a lone wanderer discovering a brand new sort of. It's almost like being an archaeologist or something, except you get to shoot shit. But yeah, just goddamn, such an amazing game. I'm just gushing over it because I haven't gotten to talk about this game yet, and I've kind of hinted at how much I love this game here and there, especially on live streams. But I adore this game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Again, it does have its issues. I know a lot of people probably won't like the first person, but Jesus, such a good game. Oh, God, so good. And of course, since we have Metroid Prime, I have to have Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, which is also an amazing game. I love this glossy cover. I hope you guys can see it okay. But yeah, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, which again is amazing. It's not as good as the original, in my opinion. I do know some people who love Echoes, and they think Echoes is like the pinnacle of the series. I don't think that's too common of a thought, but I have met a few people who absolutely adore Echoes. But my issue with Echoes is that it actually had an ammunition system for the light and dark weapons, and the light and dark weapons are such an important part of the game that being limited on ammunition there made it so that you just had to wait around and wait for your ammo to refill sometimes. And there are certain areas that you go into like a light and a dark world. So there are certain areas in the dark world that you go into that you can't survive in. So you have to shoot these lights everywhere. And so you have to traverse the dark area, take some damage, go into the light area, which will refill your health. So there's a lot of waiting around in this game, which really kills the pace of it. However, later on, it's sort of ameliorated because you get this light suit, so Samus can just absorb light around, and she doesn't have to worry about going through the dark area. And I actually think that she refills health by the end when she's in the dark area, if I remember correctly. So it completely flips around by the end, but getting to that point can be a bit arduous. But again, the way that this game does everything is almost as amazing as Metroid Prime. Again, it's not as good. I don't think the environment is as interesting as Talon 4 in Metroid Prime. I think it was Talon 4. But yeah, I don't think it's as interesting as the environment in Metroid Prime, but this is still a great game. And this one had multiplayer. It had like a deathmatch multiplayer mode on it, which was very strange. I did play it a few times. It's kind of fun, but at the same time, it's weird. Just Deathmatch and Metroid. They kind of did that later on with Metroid Prime Hunters, I think, on the DS. I think that may have came out before this one. I can't remember. But either way, that one was pretty interesting too. But it was just weird having Deathmatch in Metroid. It just felt out of place, but it was still kind of fun. It was a kind of fun mode, but yeah, very, very amazing game. Metroid Prime Echoes. But again, one of my favorite games of all time, Metroid Prime. And yeah, that is it. That is the end of my GameCube collection. Hope that you guys enjoyed it. Have any of your favorites popped up here? Be sure to let me know what your favorites are. Be sure to let me know if you think the games that I love suck. Be sure to let me know if you love the games as well. Thank you very kindly for watching. And before I go, if you have not played it, play Metroid Prime because it's amazing. Unless you don't like first-person games. If you don't like first-person games, I'm not sure if it'll change your mind, but just give it a try because it's so well done. And of course, try Echoes afterward if you enjoyed Metroid Prime. But yeah, either case, thank you very kindly for watching. Once again, my name is Atrophy of Soul. I will see you all later, and be sure to have yourselves a fine day.